Hey guys, in this video we're going to start making the Guess My Number game. Super excited. We did our planning in the last video, so now let's dive into it. So I kind of mentioned last video that we have three phases. The inputting, or like the starting phase where you enter your username, select your difficulty, the middle phase where you actually guess your number, and then the ending phase where you can see leaderboards, decide to play again. I think a natural flow is that in the first video, we'll cover the first part, second video, second part, and the third video, the third part. So in this video, let's set up the file, let's make it so the user can enter a username, enter a difficulty, and we can set up infrastructure for the number of guesses and the history of guesses. So let's begin. So we're going to make a new file. I just did Command N, and actually, the good way to do it here, new file, right here, Command N. Now we can save our file, and we can call it guessmynumber.py. So this would be our Guess My Number game. We save it like here, and let's begin. So when the user starts, they should have some sort of introduction. Here's the game, and here's how you play, and then they should be able to enter a username. So let's start with some instructions. So if we want to output to the right, since we're dealing with a file, if we want to output to the user, we're going to be using the print keyword. And although we could type out our whole message right here, it's good practice in programming, good practice in programming and in projects to have a list of what are called constants at the top. So what do I mean? I mean these variables are going to be used throughout the app, but more likely than not, so let me demonstrate right here. So I can make a variable here called intro message, and I could say welcome to the Guess My Number game. So this is an intro message, and I can have instructions, a variable called instructions, which will store my instructions. This could be to play, enter a username, and try to guess the number that the computer picks. And now, so I have these two variables right here. And now, once I start my program up, I want to obviously print the intro message, and then I want to print the instructions. Now, why do I have my messages up here, and why my print and then I print them later on? Why not just put this code right in here? Well, the thing is that later on, say you want to modify the Guess My Number game, and you want to say, okay, maybe you want to say, welcome to the Guess My Number game version 2, or something like that. It's much easier if you have these variables defined up here before you get into any messy code, because right at the end of this, it's going to be a pretty long file. So we'll have to go through it, and we'll have to say, okay, well, where did I put that intro message? It's probably in line 127. Where is it? But if I have my variables up here, then I say, okay, well, hey, I just want to change the title of the name. Boom, it's right here. These variables are likely going to be ones that you most likely access when trying to edit your file compared to the code below, most times. Now, I also want to start introducing something called comments. Now, comments are going to be essentially lines, and I'll demonstrate like this, that are messages to the programmer themselves. So when I put a hashtag right here, or a pound symbol before any text, that means that I'm telling the computer to not read this line of code. This is for the programmer. So if I'm a programmer and I want to modify the Guess My Numbers program, I just go here and I say, okay, well, I see this comment for me. It says variables, so I know that this is probably variables. The computer says, I'm going to totally ignore this, but this is the variables. So I'm able to print an intro message and the instructions. Now, it's probably time for me to ask the user for their username. So I will do that. And in the process, we probably should have some sort of function right here. Again, functions are good for code organization as well. You know what's going on. So let's make this function. It'll be called, right, like game startup. So when we just start up the game, we'll execute this code. So game startup, we don't need to take any parameters because again, we're dealing with just the start of the game. There's nothing for the user to input. And this comment right here will be constants, or constants meaning something's constant, it's not changed. Constants used in our program. Again, the intro message isn't going to change unless, like, during the course of the program. When I mean constant, it means during the course of the program. The intro message is not going to change during the course of the program. Then we're going to have important variables, because now we need to prompt the user for their username. And we'll have the username variable right here. So right now, we're going to set it to a blank string, but this is going to change because the user is going to hopefully enter their username. So the important variables right here. And then we have functions. I actually did the word important inside that. All right, important. It's redundant. Then we have functions. So the game startup. And now I'm going to say username equals input. Right, so we're just going to request a user for the username. What is your username? And now let's have something called game loop, or just the game itself. And this is going to be actually where we call our functions, right? One thing is to define the function, but another thing is we have to call it. So we'll have game startup, and we'll call our function right here. So game startup, and now we will print this intro message, we'll print the instructions, and we'll ask the user for the username. So, actually at this point, I think we made a good amount of progress. Let's try it out, right? So I open a new terminal right here. What I can do in Mac, do CD, take my folder right here, and just drag it in here, press enter. And now I could do Python 3, right? We're dealing with Python 3.6, so we want to use Python 3.3. And we say, guess my number. And a quick trick is that when you're typing this out, you can press the tab key to kind of autocomplete in the terminal and console, which is super helpful. All right, and we're brought to the screen. Hey, welcome to the Guess My Number game. Oh, thank you. To play, enter a username and try to guess the number. All right, what's my username? Mike. Okay, and the program quits, right? Because, we're like, right? There's nothing else to do. So let's see here. So we have usernames. That's kind of done. And when setting everything up, this is the kind of the setup phase. Let's create variables for the history of guesses and the number of guesses. And also the leaderboard, just so we have everything set up, and then in future videos we'll actually modify and manipulate it. So we want the number of user guesses. So this would be the number of guesses that the user makes during their their whole attempt to try to guess a number. Oh, and I also forgot we want the difficulty. And we'll set this equal to easy for now, but obviously we will have the user guess it. So we will say difficulty equals input game difficulty, and we will say easy, medium, or hard. And also we should probably tell the instructions that they're going to have to enter a difficulty. Please enter a username and a difficulty. And okay, so we have a username, we have a difficulty, we wanted the number of guesses, and we wanted the history of user guesses. And this should be a list because we're going to keep track of the guesses that the user has inputted. So a list is good for this, so we have a list of the guesses. And let's see, right? So we have this implemented, difficulty, usernames, leaderboard. We can make a variable for the leaderboard. So we'll say leaderboard. This will be a dictionary. Yeah, this is going to be a dictionary. Sorry if I said list in the last video. I guess I didn't specify it. But this should be a dictionary, right? Because we're going to go from the key will be the user name, and the value, if you will, the definition of the key will be the actual score, right? So we'll have like user to score, and that's a good way to keep track of the leaderboard. So we created all our variables here. We created our functions. We have our constants. We have the game set up, ready to go. So in the next video, we will start actually programming the game and thinking about the logic and everything. Looking forward to it. Thanks so much, guys.